Good morning, everyone. My name is Chris Yoder, and on behalf of the Luncheon Committee, I'd like to welcome you all to this, our 9th annual Saugatuck Douglas Community Armed Forces Day Luncheon. I'd like to acknowledge some of our special guests. Our speaker will be introduced later, but Representative Mary Whiteford and her mother. And coming from Grand Rapids, we're expecting Kay Van Drunen and some of her members of the West Michigan Veterans Assistance Program. Are they here yet? There we go. They perform important support services to veterans and their families throughout West Michigan, and they've been the recipient over the last 8 years of $9,000 left over from this luncheon. Now, it's with great pleasure I introduce Reverend G. Corwin Stoppel, Ph.D. Reverend Stoppel served as a military chaplain in the armed forces of our valiant Canadian allies to the north, is a well-known local newspaper columnist, and has authored 7 murder mysteries set in Saugatuck of the 1920s. Reverend Stoppel.
Thank you, Chris. Couple of things before we really get started. First of all, this is the perfect time to turn off the smartphones, the dumb phones, the iPods, the iPads, and all of the other noisemakers. Leave them on vibrate or stun. Take all the pictures that you like, but we're in a church. Unless God is calling you, no ringing. Number 2, this is really important. Over the years, Chris Yoder and others of the Lunch Committee have worked very hard to make this happen. And it takes a tremendous amount of time, and much of that burden has fallen to Chris. We've never given him enough acknowledgement for all of the work that he does. And we've given even less acknowledgement to Carol, his wife, because the two of them have worked together on this. And I am sure it is the topic of conversation at their home for months on end. They have worked on it, discussed, done all sorts of things, and I think you fellows who are married know that a lot of your success is attributable to your spouse, and that is certainly the case with Chris and Carol. So may we please greet Carol and thank her for all that she has done. You well deserve it. Well, it's been a challenging year for all of us. After having to delay and then cancel last year's luncheon, we're able to meet once again. And with the guidance from the Allegan County Health Department, we've made some changes to our normal process based on indoor dining rooms. So we're supposed to keep our masks on when we're not eating, and you'll notice that there's no money collected at the table in the hall when you came in. Instead, there is a bowl on each table, and non-vets who might need to pay can place a check or cash into that. The check should be made out to the Armed Forces Day Luncheon. And we'll mention the serving plans. They're going to be a little different too. Now, as you heard Chris say, the money goes to the Veterans Association, Southwest Michigan Veterans Association. And they do a lot of good work. So I'm going to do what Daddy Devine used to do on his radio programs back in the 1950s when he broadcast, and he would tell his congregation, "We need your money." But I don't want to hear any racket from change. Just put that soft-spoken folding stuff. Seriously, change, whether it's pennies or $100 bills, if you can add a little extra into the bowl, it would be a wonderful gift to these volunteers who do so much for so many others. After you've gone through the serving line, you'll be served by masked and gloved servers. They've all had their temperature checked. None of them are hot under the collar or the forehead, and they all have their full vaccines, which is good news. So, with that done, will those of you, oh, by the way, if you need change, Janet Elzinga, where are you? That woman with her hand up has change. So if you need change to make a contribution, please see her. So now, will those of you who are able, please rise as the Saugatuck Boy Scout Troop presents the colors and leads us in the Pledge of Allegiance and the National Anthem.
Color Guard advance. Scout salute. Color Guard, please post the colors. Join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. 2. Please take your hats off and join me in the national anthem. Oh, say, can you see? You may now be seated.
As many of you know, the late Judy Mauger of the Saugatuck History Center organized the first of these community luncheons to honor our service members in 2012. Owen Smith of the local Legion Post was active for several years in the arrangements, and so once again we want to dedicate this lunch to both of them. I also want to point out that Phyllis Ann, Owen's wife, she's with us today, and she's going to stand up and wave her hand at you. This year, we remember William Crawford, John Duval, 3 sons of the Fenville World War II era, Postmaster George Crawford Duval. These boys went off to serve in the military. William was a World War II combat pilot, serving in 80 missions and earning the Air Medal with 6 oak leaf clusters. Crawford was killed in a training accident in Texas in 1945. John Barron made a career of the Air Force, serving in Korea and elsewhere. And since our last lunch in 2019, many of our veterans have passed away. We honor them this day as well, including Arnold Schaefer, Dave Mauger, Rob Corey, who were here with us for our last gathering. This year is our 9th meeting, our 9th lunch, And here's a review of the featured programs at each of our luncheons. Many of you will remember Quang Nguyen, who spoke at the last luncheon about his family experiences in Vietnam and his childhood escape to the United States after the war. Last November, he was elected to the Arizona House of Representatives, where he now serves. His daughter will be graduating from the Naval Academy in a few days. You'll notice the picture made several years ago of our World War II veterans who assembled for this luncheon, and sadly, now most of them are gone as well. And some pictures from those programs from the past. As Americans, we are perhaps the most forward-looking people in the world, and so we do remember the past. But this year, we move forward with Brigadier General Brian Teff of the Michigan National Guard. And he will be talking about the Michigan National Guard, both Army and Air, your hometown militia. He'll discuss the major accomplishments and the events of the Michigan National Guard over the past year or two, and we'll introduce him a bit later in the program. So it is about time for lunch, and let's pause and return thanks. Almighty God, we give thanks for this day. We give thanks for the privilege of being together, for honoring members of the armed forces, past, present, and future. We give thanks for the food before us. We give thanks for the opportunity to meet in this church. And we ask that you bless this time as we enjoy our lunch together. So, amen. And I need to give instructions, not on how to eat, but how to get the food to eat. We'll be released a table at a time to go through the line. Just pretend, you veterans, that you're back in the mess hall. Somebody will put the food on your plate. Don't do it yourself. That's naughty. All food handlers have had their temperature checked, and they're wearing protective equipment, and each have had their full regimen of COVID shots. And you are allowed to remove your mask while eating. So with that, shall we begin?
And darkness too, I won't complain, I'll see it through. Poverty may come to me, it's true, but what care I?
She had a tear in the corner of her eye as he said his last.
Good afternoon, everybody, and I'm Jim Sullivan, the current president of the Rotary Club of Saugatuck Douglas. I'd like to start off by saying thank you to all the veterans for your service. I never accepted the duty to serve, although my first 18 years I was raised by a career Army officer, so I kind of get it. Thank you. I'm here, thank you, Father Corey, for letting me have just a minute. You may know that the largest fundraiser the Rotary Club locally does is an event in the fall called the Mount Bald Head Challenge. It's a race around the dunes, off-road, and very successful for us. In 2019, it raised $75,000 to start a local boys and girls club at the Saugatuck Public Schools. We got interrupted by COVID, but launched that program in January, and we're underway. We have to raise another $100,000 this year and another $100,000 next year, so we're glad we're going to be running the Mount Bald Head Challenge this fall. It happens to fall on the first Saturday after Labor Day every year, and in a classic example of a date finding us, that happens to be 9/11, the 20th anniversary of the attacks. And we have to mark that day with some kind of ceremony. So as the race starts, we have an idea that at the sound of a gong of a bell, we want the runners to run through a double-facing phalanx of police, fire, EMT, and military veterans in silence as the race starts, as a way to honor them. So I just will extend to you that information, and if anyone is interested in coordinating the veterans, we would be honored if you would participate in that ceremony to start the race. That's 9 a.m. Saturday, September 11th, 2021. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Lance Winchester from the Cow Hill, come on up and tell us what you're doing.
I'm not a public speaker.
Yes, but you're a high-caliber gentleman with that name, Winchester.
First of all, thank you, veterans. Thank you, the family of the veterans, because you also served. I represent Cow Hill Yacht Club. Cow Hill Yacht Club is not really anything to do with boats. We don't have a venue. We don't have a clubhouse. We put on festivals and Venetian's one. The chili cook-off's another. We do golf outings. We raise money to give back into the immediate community. I am here to reach out. We want to know if there is a veteran that needs help, because we will help them. A lot of vets are too proud to ask for help. So I want it known to you to reach out to us if you know a veteran needs help. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Judy is ready to tickle the ivories, and we're going to sing the service songs for military veterans. We ask that service members this year please rise for the singing of their service song. Usually we've had the family stand with them, but this time, so we can really pick them out, the service members, and we're going to sing each song twice. Judy? And now the Air Force. The Coast Guard. Rob Carey, who was a World War II veteran, passed away this past year. He was the one and only member of the Merchant Marines that participated in these luncheons. And so we remember Rob and the Merchant Marines. And finally, we acknowledge the spouses and families of all our service members who make their service possible. Thank you for being here. It's now time for the main event. Our featured speaker, General Brigadier Brian Teff, the Assistant Adjutant General and Gentleman, Michigan Air National Guard. He is the principal advisor to the Adjutant General of all Michigan Air National Guard matters. He commands 2,500 ready airmen executing multi-domain global operations, safeguarding the homeland, and supporting Michigan communities. In addition, General Teff serves as the Air National Guard Assistant to the Commander, Air Force Sustainment Center, Air Force Materiel Command, Tinker Air Force Base in Oklahoma City. General Teff received his commission in 1989 from the U.S. Air Force Academy. There, he earned a Bachelor of Science degree in Operations Research. He completed undergraduate pilot training, following which his first assignment was as a T-38 instructor pilot, and from there he transitioned to the A-10A and A-10C Warthog. General Teff joined the Michigan Air National Guard in 1998 and has served in a variety of leadership and command roles throughout the state. He participated in military operations as an A-10 and MQ-9 pilot, including Operation Southern Watch, Operation Iraqi Freedom, Operation Enduring Freedom, Operation Freedom Sentinel, Operation Inherent Resolve. Prior to his current assignment, General Teff was the wing commander of the 110th Wing, Battle Creek Air National Guard Base here in Michigan. General, we're happy to have you here.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. It's great to be here. Really want to thank Chris Yoder for working this and inviting me to speak. It's really an honor and a privilege. I know Chris and I worked this probably starting a year and a half ago. And then COVID obviously canceled last year's event. And, it's great to be here. I'm really blessed to be able to come out and do this kind of stuff. So I hope to make this kind of interactive if you want it to be. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the Michigan National Guard. But if you have a question, I'm very much open to, if you want to interrupt me in mid-sentence, that's all good. I'll stop, I'll answer your question, and we'll go on. So, because I think this will be informative in some ways. I might be able to inform you of a few things that we are doing in Michigan and maybe that we've had in Michigan that you're not aware of. So it should be a lot of fun. Well, and I'm going to start with my overall premise today is to talk about the Michigan National Guard and there's three core functions of the National Guard. One is our federal mission. That's our Title X mission where we work for the president. Our second mission is our ability to defend the homeland and to do things like COVID support, which we'll talk about. I'll give you some numbers of some of the things that we've done today. And then the third piece is our ability to establish and build global partnerships. You may not be aware of the vast presence that the state of Michigan and the Michigan National Guard have worldwide. I think you're going to be amazed at where we are and where we're connected and what we do. So with that, I'm going to show, what I'd like to do is roll a quick video, please. This is a summary of 2020. It'll show you a lot of things as it relates to COVID and a lot of the things we've done in the state of Michigan. Please roll the video. So kind of a cool, quick video to maybe get everybody to understand what we do in the Michigan National Guard. I want to start and maybe just give you a quick overview of what we have in Michigan. So we have about 11,000 Air Force members and Army members here in Michigan. So we're the primary combat reserve of the United States Army and the United States Air Force. That's the definition of the National Guard from a federal perspective. So on the Air Force side, we have three main installations. So we have one at Battle Creek, we have one in Alpena, which is a training center, a combat readiness training center, And then we have the 127th Wing at Selfridge, just north of Detroit. It's actually the largest Air Force base in the entire reserve component. We have right here in Michigan, 8,000 people work on that installation every day. So it's a huge operation. It's the only commissary, the only BX, the only military golf course in the entire state of Michigan is north of Detroit. So that's pretty cool. And on the Army side, we have 2 main installations, and then we have about 40 plus armories spread throughout the whole state, almost every county, all the way up into the UP. But the 2 main installations, we have Fort Custer, which is a training site near Battle Creek. And then we actually have Camp Grayling, which is a gym. A lot of people probably are not aware Camp Grayling is 147,000 acres of ground maneuver space and training space. It's also the largest Army Maneuver Training Center in the nation in the National Guard. So we have that, we own that here in Michigan. So really cool capability. And we get along. I want to tell just a quick story, kind of off topic a little bit. But I saw the members when everybody stood up for the song, and we have everybody represented but the Coast Guard, it looked like. So this will probably, do we have one Coast Guardsman? Ah, very good. Oh, great. We'll give him my best. Thanks. No, that's great. Perfect. So I think we have everybody represented. So a few weeks ago, we actually got everybody together down at Fort Custer, and we were in preparation for a deployment event. So I think a lot of you'll resonate with this. And they had the drill instructor got up, and these were younger men and women going to deploy. They hadn't deployed yet. So we were trying to instruct them through some of the basics. And the instructor got up and said, well, when you're deployed, if you find a scorpion in your tent, what are you going to do? And this is it's a real question. If you deploy to the Middle East, they have scorpions, they have spiders, they have all that stuff. So the first person got up, the Army soldier. She said, well, I'm going to, kind of take my distance. I'm going to throw my boot at it and try to kill the scorpion. That was a good answer. Then we had the Navy, the sailor. He said, nah, I'm going to walk over there and I'm going to stomp on the scorpion. And then, of course, the Marine, I saw 2 Marines, what do you think they said, right? The Marines, no, I'm going to go over there, I'm going to pick it up with my bare hands, I'm going to break it in half, right? Because they're Marines. Once a Marine, always a Marine. And then, I was there was a couple Air Force people that stood up. So the airman, she stands up and she says, well, I'd have to go down to the front desk and find out why there's a tent in my hotel room. So I'm making fun of my own service, right? So the Air Force, we live a little bit different life. And when we're deployed, we expect different things. So that's kind of true, right? The Army, the Navy, the Marine Corps, when they deploy, they live in different conditions than we do in the Air Force. So when you tell this joke with a full military audience, they really they get it. So it's pretty good. So I'll start with our federal mission a little bit, and I gave you the laydown of what we have in Michigan. So even during COVID, nothing really stopped. So we on the Air Force side, so we fly the MQ-9 out of Battle Creek. So that's a 24/7, 365-day-a-year mission. We support operations globally. And this MQ-9, if you're not familiar with what it is, the airplane is about as wide as, it's probably from baseline to baseline here on the basketball court. And it's about 50 feet long. It's an unmanned, it's a drone, but it's a big drone. So we actually fly that remotely from Battle Creek. We also have a cyber mission. We do cyber defense. And then we actually support the U.S. Air Force in Europe. And we do that every day. A lot of people don't know that. We do that right from Battle Creek. And then over in Detroit at Selfridge, we fly the KC-135 Stratotanker. That's a big air refueling platform. When the video popped up, you saw the boom come down where they refuel. We fly that airplane. We are constantly deployed every day of the year, all the time. So it never ends, right? So we always have an airplane. Go ahead, sir.
How far away are those remote aircraft, remote drones?
Oh, great question. So that's an awesome question. I'm sure some of you were thinking that. So very, very far. So in some cases, over 6,000 miles away. So a long way. All the way around the other side of the world in some cases, yes. Great question. Some of it's classified, so I can't get into exact details, but it's a long way away. And then we also fly the A-10 Warthog at Selfridge, and they do a lot of work. You know, they train in Michigan and all that. And none of that stopped during COVID. So I want everybody to know. So the COVID, it may have slowed us down a little bit, maybe a little bit of a speed bump, but we never stopped. And we continually deployed people overseas. All those missions, we never lost one sortie since COVID started. So one flight, sorties, takeoff and land. So we never lost any of that during COVID. On the Army side, we deployed 500 people in the last year. And that never stopped. We hosted our annual exercises. All of our normal training occurred. So we really kept going during COVID. And I think that's important to realize, because in the Guard, a lot of people look at the National Guard and they say, well, you know, it's really here, it's more of an in-state mission, but that's not true. So the National Guard, the reason why we can do all the things we do to support the communities is because of our federal funding and our federal training. If you go back to what I said in the beginning, we're the primary combat reserve of the Air Force and the Army. So we, unlike the reserves, we're number 2. The reserves are number 3. So we're the primary go-to organization to deploy on a moment's notice. In the Air National Guard, we have a 48-hour window. So the active duty is immediate. They can fight tonight. We have 48 hours to get ready and deploy. So kind of interesting stuff. The couple other things about Michigan. Go ahead, sir. You have a question? Oh, no. It is. I'm happy.
I just want to have a question to back up a little bit. This drone that you say is half the size of this basketball court.
Yes.
Is that a surveillance drone, or does that carry is that a delivery? Is that a drone that delivers things?
Both.
Both?
Yeah. Both.
And it's controlled from Battle Creek?
Battle Creek, Michigan.
It goes all over the world?
All over the world. Yeah, the technology it uses to fly that airplane, it uses satellite and data link technology to connect and to fly it. And it's very responsive and things like that. But it's a good mission, you know, and it's not always what you're thinking, probably. It has both aspects, but it's more of a surveillance platform than it is anything else. But it has the ability to be flown pretty much anywhere in the world. We don't own any of the airplanes here, and I should explain that they're in another location. They take off. And then with technology, we grab it, in essence, right? We get a hold of it, pretty low altitude, and then we fly it from Battle Creek. That's how it works. And then we fly it around for a long time, and then we bring it back to a point, and we hand it back to the people that land it.
Conduct military operations, say, in Asia somewhere, or surveil and conduct military operations. Who commands that then? I mean, where is it? If someone is looking at that, go here, or go, they're telling the ground troops to do something. Where is that? Where are those there?
That's a great question. Right, there is an organization. We have several of these air operations centers stationed in key places around the globe, and you usually there's a 3 or 4 star general in coordination with the Secretary of Defense and the President of the United States. They direct the activity. That's how it works. Sometimes it's all the way to the President. So, and that's regardless of your political affiliation, none of that, with this type of business, I don't think any of that matters. So, go ahead. Go ahead. Oh, I'm sorry, I will. Thank you. That's great advice. So the question is, what's the average age of the drone operator? So it ranges from, but average I would say is about maybe 32, 33, somewhere around there. But we have people in their younger 20s all the way into their 50s. So, yeah. It's a good question. I've never had that question. I'll have to do the math, actually, now. I need to actually go back and bring out my calculator and figure it out. But I think that's about right. Probably about 32 or 33. They are. You can pick it up because you still have to fly the airplane like a regular airplane in some cases. So there's some from a regular airplane to an unmanned airplane. There's some natural connections. Good. Go ahead, sir. I am. Yeah, so the A-10, it's been around a long time, since the 70s. It's actually really pretty old airplane now. The latest model that was ever made was in 1981. It's a unique airplane that they only built one 2-seat model. And unfortunately, it crashed a long time ago, back in the early 80s. So you're training in that airplane. You have to be a qualified pilot. And then when you go to A-10 training, your first flight in the airplane, you're solo. So you're by yourself. You have somebody that chases you and it kind of helps you out if you need it. But your first flight solo, the airplane is designed to support U.S. and coalition members on the ground. So it's designed for a close air support where we protect our troops and our allies on the ground. And that's the way the airplane was built. It actually built a big gun in the airplane, and then they built the airplane around the gun. So it's kind of a uniquely built machine. It was built by Fairchild Republic way back in the 70s, as I mentioned. And now we've kept it flying up to this point. The Chief of Staff of the Air Force just put out a thing where we're going to fly it till at least 2030. So about another 8 years, which is about 30 years longer than they thought it would fly. It was supposed to go away in the early 90s. So does that answer your question on the A-10? So I like the A-10 was, as an airplane, it's very maneuverable, and you could fly at low altitude, which was really fun. So we would fly as low as 100 feet above the ground, which I thought was really cool. That was fun. The other part, the part that was bad, is a little bit underpowered. From an airplane standpoint, the engines are older and they're slightly underpowered, so you couldn't get yourself out of a place. If you found yourself in a bad position, you couldn't power out of it, which you can in some airplanes. So, oh yeah, yeah. No, I've done a couple Memorial Day flybys right over this area myself. Maybe 8 to 10 years ago, we did, I think, this Saugatuck Douglas area. Then we did Pentwater. So so it's fun. It's a good time. Great. Well, just to bridge into a couple other things in Michigan. So in Michigan, and I think this is important for everybody to understand. So I mentioned Camp Grayling, largest Army maneuver training center in the nation, in the Guard, right here in Michigan. Then, I don't know if you're aware or not, we actually own and operate the largest military airspace complex east of the Mississippi. Who knew that? So exactly. So when I go out and I speak, I try to make this a point. So we own and operate the largest military airspace complex east of the Mississippi. We have a extremely nice bombing range up by Grayling. You know where Grayling is? Just to the east of Grayling. Very robust capability there. And then we also actually have another range over Lake Huron, in the middle of Lake Huron, which hardly anybody knows about, but we have one. And it's big, and it's 20 miles wide by 60 miles long. And I've been out there in the middle of the lake, and it's like you're on the Atlantic Ocean because you can't see land in any direction. So you are in the middle of nowhere. It's right on the Canadian border where the U.S.-Canada line is in Lake Huron. Sir?
If you've ever been trout fishing in the Au Sable River in Grayling in the summertime, you feel like you're in a war zone.
Right.
Because of the military.
That's right.
It shakes the whole thing.
Right. And so the comment was the Au Sable River fishing near Grayling in the summer, it's like a war zone. Well, we do host the largest, here's another thing. In Michigan since 2012, we've hosted the largest joint training exercise in the reserve component. So not as big as the active duty, but in the Garden Reserve, we host this thing. It's known worldwide. It's called Northern Strike. So we're in year 10 this year. It's up there in Grayling, Alpena, and everywhere in between, to this gentleman's point. And it's very busy. We brought in some years up to 10,000 soldiers, sailors, Marines, all into Camp Grayling, Alpena, and then we bring in hundreds of airplanes to fly, F-16s, A-10s, F-35s, hopefully in the future, KC-135s, C-130s, everything the Air Force owns. And they do, right, we do, yeah. It's a full training scenario, and that's right here in Michigan. And I know a lot of people don't know we have that, so we're a very capable, relevant force. I guess that's my point. I just wanted everybody to know we have a lot going for us here in Michigan. We don't have an active duty presence in Michigan, so we are your hometown Air Force and Army, right? Because the active duty went away in the middle 90s when they closed Wurtsmith Air Force Base in Oscoda, and then they closed the base in the Upper Peninsula. It was called K.I. Sawyer. It was near Marquette, just south of Marquette in the town of Gwynn. So we don't have any active duty presence, so we feel obligated to make ourselves as relevant as possible, and that's what we work on every day. So I wanted to at least, I think there may have been one other question before we move on, or no? Okay, good. How am I doing on time? Am I good, Chris? Okay. He disappeared? Okay. Just give me the hook when we're done. So I wanted to move into a little bit of our COVID support. And I've got to actually read my notes because I don't have all these numbers memorized. And then I've got another video that I think you'll find interesting. So on the COVID front, obviously the Guard has been very visible out in the community. Last year when COVID first started, we administered over 220,000 COVID tests. That was all of our people all over the state. We actually took care of all the prisons. So the whole Michigan Department of Corrections, we took care of that for the Department of Corrections. And then we also distributed over 44,000 tests. When we moved into vaccines, we've actually done even better. So starting in January, we got into vaccines. Right now, as of Friday, yesterday, over 447,000 vaccines administered by the military in Michigan. That's all here in Michigan to all of you and your family members and your friends and relatives. And then on the military side, we've administered 13,500 vaccines to our people, like myself, I got 2 shots myself. And then we've also been supporting the food banks, and I'm not sure if you're aware of that. So several food banks around Michigan, very important mission, great for the community. We have 2 big ones, one at Flint and one in Comstock here north of Grand Rapids. So in the last year, we've done over 48 million pounds of food. So lots of really good work there. And then, of course, we supported the floods in Midland last summer, if you remember that. And then the civil unrest in Kenosha, Wisconsin, we responded to that. And we supported, with over 1,000 people, the presidential inauguration. So we've been kind of busy. And I'm going to roll that second video, and this shows you a little bit about that Northern Strike exercise I talked about.
Do it as product to my line Bravo 03. Roger, you can read that line.
I'm going to try to put that.
Hey, I'm going to read Mike 201. Do it as product to my line Bravo 03. Give it back. Target 2 Bravo 155.
So all that happens right here in Michigan. Everything you saw was filmed actually last year, right during the summer in Michigan. Before I move into the partnerships, I wanted to explain, so I know there's a lot of discussion on our veterans programs and all that. So our department, which I'm a part of in my full-time capacity, is the Department of Military and Veterans Affairs here in Michigan. So it consists of the Army National Guard, the Air National Guard, the Veterans Homes, and the Veterans Affairs Agency. So we have all four of those wrapped under one. So we have about 11,000 military, and then we have a couple more thousand with a grand total of about 13,000 in our department. And we're very interlinked and connected. So Director Adams, Zanetta Adams, she lives here in Muskegon, close by. She's the director of the MVA. And then Miss Ann Zerby directs the veterans homes. We actually stood up another one. So we've got one in Grand Rapids, which I think you're familiar with. We have one in the Upper Peninsula near Marquette. And then we just stood up the third veteran home. The governor cut the ribbon on that home in Chesterfield just a few weeks ago. So now we have three. So we're expanding that capability, looking to potentially add another veteran home here in the future. So. And then my final piece, I wanted a couple, just some gee whiz stuff. So I mentioned our partnerships. Does anybody know the two countries we're closely partnered with? One, we have the second longest partnership in the nation. Does anybody know? I'll throw it out there, a guess. It's not Canada. This is the state of Michigan. So we have a State Department, a U.S. State Department sponsored partnership with two foreign nations. It's not England? Latvia. So Latvia, we were the second in the nation to have these partnerships. Our partnership was established in 1993. So our partnership is so close with Latvia. I mean, all of us, we know their equivalent of their Secretary of Defense. We meet with them all the time. We meet with all their service chiefs. When I was at Battle Creek, our partnership was so strong that the president of Latvia came to Michigan and came to Battle Creek and toured our base. In Latvia? Yes, we helped build the base. It's called Liepāja, right near the capital of Latvia, which is Riga. So I've been there many times. So Liepāja was basically an old Russian base, if you will. Nothing there, and we've helped build it to almost full capability. And in fact, we're going to open up the full capability here this fall. So pretty cool. And then our other partnership, I doubt you would know it's newer, but it's from 2014. We're partnered with Liberia, which is on the continent of Africa on the eastern coast line. It's almost a coastal country. That's kind of a newer partnership. We've been helping them a lot with medical, establishing some of their medical procedures, helping build schools and things like that. So it's actually really valuable, but newer partnership. And then we actually have a third one, which is not a foreign nation, but it's the Virgin Islands. That's kind of a nice place to visit. So we help the Virgin Islands out. And we actually have their helicopters, just as an aside. We have their helicopters on the Army side from the Virgin Islands here in Michigan. So we're helping maintain, helping keep their pilots current. And we actually have several members from the Virgin Islands who have moved from the Virgin Islands to Michigan to actually do this. Just the U.S. Virgin Islands. Yes, sir. Go ahead.
Which island in the Virgin Islands?
That's a great question because it's both. So it's both St. Thomas and St. Croix. The National Guard headquarters is on St. Croix, but they also have guard units on St. Thomas as well. Go ahead, sir. There's no scorpions, but I think there's some daiquiris in the Virgin Islands. That's a great question. If there was, though, the Air Force would be in a hotel. Great. Any other questions for me? Sir, go ahead.
Yeah, you talked about the A-10 staying in service till 2030, and then you have the F-35, what's air support. You have the Army expanding into these long-range fighters, the artillery, and the rockets. So they're competing with the Air Force for this deeper into the battle space.
Yep.
How do you think that's going to play out?
Oh, that's a good question. So the question was, the Army and the Air Force are kind of competing for some of these different platforms. You know, we have the A-10, and in fact, I just got back last night. I mean, this is an amazing question. Yeah, I was at Dugway Proving Ground in the middle of the mountains of Utah at one of their an Army test exercise. And that's what we were doing yesterday, where they're shooting these long-range fires, if you will. It's they have tanks, they have artillery, they have other platforms now that can do all this stuff. I think the Army's going to have their piece of this, and then the A-10 is going to maintain itself as a bridge until about 2030 or so, and I think the A-10 is going to go away. And really the F-35 does not do what the A-10 does because it has different capability, and it's going to be used in a different way. So I think the Army's going to pick up a little bit more of that. So it's probably surprising coming from an Air Force guy, but I think that's what's going to happen.
I'm hearing that the will is going to be less involved in foreign operations, foreign countries. Are you feeling that in the operations that you have withdrawn back?
I'm not, other than you've heard. I mean, I think the president made a clear statement, and the Secretary of Defense indicated that we are pulling out of Afghanistan. That's well known. That was in the papers on 1 October of this year. But other than that, I think our operations are steady. other than the Afghanistan piece. I'm probably out of time because I'm getting the hook, it looks like. But hey, it was great to be here. I really, what a great event. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
General Teff, thank you for being here. This was absolutely fascinating. It beats that program on the polar bears a few years ago. General Teff is going to be around for a little while longer, and afterwards, after we've wrapped up and finished, he'll have a little while longer to stay and talk and answer questions and so on. My next task is to introduce Chris Yoder. This is Carol's husband.
Thank you, Reverend Stoppel. I'd like to thank a number of people. First off, the Community Church of Douglas and its staff for being our host for the 8th year running. Thanks to Pastor Brandon Beebe, who you hear from in a bit, and Mike Mora, who is the church operations director, as well as others who are involved in the setup for the luncheon, including Kevin Juris, Bob Harrington, Steve Nutting, Eric Morrow, and Joe Brady. I'd also like to thank the ladies of the Sisters Bible Group, which decorated the room for today, including Sharon Lawson, Michelle Leffler, Edith Hancock, Gwen Fuller, Janet Elsinga, Carol Yoder, and of course, Judy Coleman on the piano. Thank you, Judy. Our organizational sponsors include the Community Church, the Rotary Club, the Saugatuck Douglas History Center, the Cow Hill Yacht Club, the American Legion Post 137, the VFW, and Boy Scout Troop 29. Financial donors who helped cover the free lunch for vets include Dr. Tracy Delavecchia, the local Rotary Club, Paul Hicks of Edward Jones, Cow Hill Yacht Club, Spectator Sports Bar and Grill, Vanderleek Builders, David Hulst of Caldwell Banker, Mr. and Mrs. Roy McElwain and Dick Weston of Remax, Saugatuck Douglas. Next chart. Next, thank you. And I'd like to recognize the other members of the Luncheon Committee, and I'd like to ask each of you to please stand, starting with Corey Stoppel, who's already standing. Charlie Hancock, please stand. Jim Searing, please stand. Thank you so much for all your work. And a special appreciation to Scoutmaster Mike Teggy and the members of the Saugatuck Boy Scout Troop 29 who have presented the colors and led us in the pledge and the national anthem. Would all the Scouts please stand and get a round of applause from the audience? Now, the Scout Troop will be conducting a formal flag retirement ceremony after the luncheon, and they invite you all to join with them in this ceremony. It'll be held outside in the parking lot at the south end here of the church. And most of all, I'd like to thank each and every one of you, our guests, for attending this community event to honor our service members, past and present. Reverend Stoppel, back to you.
All right. So as we bring our day to a conclusion, please remember that Memorial Day falls on May 31st. The question is whether or not we're going to have a parade. Well, that's an interesting question, but probably yes. There's an application in at the Saugatuck City Hall, and they'll probably have the good sense to say yes if the City Council wants to be reelected ever again in the future. So, the parade, we step off in front of, we'll step off in front of the Legion Hall in Saugatuck at a couple of minutes before 9, and down to Butler Street. We take a left at the post office. We salute people, salute the dead at the chain ferry, and then we go to the park. And at 10 o'clock, we repeat the whole program again, this time in Douglas. And there will be one, Tino, because you're going to lead it off, aren't you? Thank you. So we are. If you are a veteran Whether or not you're actively involved in the Legion and the VFW, you're invited to participate in the parade and join with the veterans. It's an important time. It's really an important time, important event. Again, all the fundraising that remains after the expenses are covered are donated to the West Michigan Veterans Assistance Program, and they provide services to veterans and their families in a 5-county area of West Michigan. Since 2013, we've donated over $9,000. You have donated over $9,000. And let's see if we can bring it up to an even 10 and then above this year. That brings us to an end, and I turn this over to the Reverend Brandon Beebe of the Community Church.
Thank you, Father Corey. Well, you earned your lunch already, but I'm going to make you earn your cake. So, did you know that this is actually a national holiday? Did you know that Armed Forces Day is a national holiday? You all gone comatose on me. Some do, some knew that, and some didn't. Now, how many of you know when it was pronounced? Anybody know the date? How about the year? Some of you, most of you were alive. It was on May 20th, 1950. So 71 years ago. And the president was? Harry Truman, right. Pronounced Armed Forces Day as a federal national holiday. So, and this is how President Truman exhorted us. Display the flag of the United States in your homes on Armed Forces Day, and participate in exercises expressive of our recognition of the skill, the gallantry, and the uncompromising devotion to duty characteristic of the armed forces in carrying out their missions. Armed Forces Day is for the rest of us citizens to recognize the love of neighbor and the devotion to country that you all, so many of you all, have given us. So I want to thank you today for joining us in celebrating and honoring those who serve our nation and help us fulfill Truman's vision for this national holiday. So as we end, if you're able, let's stand and I'll give us a benediction. Join me, we come from many different backgrounds, so join me in your own faith tradition, in your own way. Here at Community Church, we pray this way. Good and gracious God, you cause nations to rise and fall, and we give you thanks for this gathering and for these members of the Armed Forces of the United States of America, both past and present. We give you thanks for this nation and the freedoms that we cultivate and we guard as her citizens. We ask for the blessing of your protection on those members of our armed forces currently serving our nation today. And we ask a blessing of your provision and healing for those who have served in the past and now deserve our gratitude and assistance. We ask for your blessing of courage to be better citizens today by loving our neighbors even as we love ourselves, and so to honor the ideal of those Americans who have valiantly served our country. And we bless you, O Lord, our giver of life, the author of all true freedom, and our only sure and enduring hope. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you all.
Thank you. As long as you are standing, we're going to sing along with Kate Smith in God Bless America. And followed by that, we have the color guard and taps.
Great pleasure in presenting to you the star of our program, Miss Kate Smith.
Hello, everybody. It is my happy privilege to introduce a new song, God Bless America. allegiance to a land that's free. Let us all be grateful for a land so fair as we raise our voices in a solemn prayer. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountain to the prairie to the ocean white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with a light from above. From the mountain to the prairie to the ocean white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet
Color guard, retrieve the colors. Color guard, retire the colors. Scout salute. Two. Dismissed.